welcome back to Infamous Indie. I'm your host, That Dead Girl, and if this is your first time joining me here, basically what I do is I sit down with you all and I share with you a true crime story from my home state of Indiana. And if you've been keeping tabs on all things Infamous Indie, then you know this week we will be getting into part 2 of the Brandi Worley story. Brandi and Jason Worley were a married couple from Darlington, Indiana. So in part 1 of this video, I basically read to you all a series of posts via Reddit that were written by Jason Worley, kind of detailing his wife's affair and all of the troubles that they were having within their marriage. So initially, I guess the couple, Jason and Brandi, they had decided to basically kind of stay together for the sake of their children. But that was before Jason Worley ended up finding out that his wife was still carrying on with this other man almost a year to the day of the original discovery of her affair. So as you can imagine, at this point, Jason Worley, he's had enough. Needless to say, he would end up taking the advice of these Redditors, and he actually ended up filing for a divorce from Brandi. So this post absolutely exploded. It went viral all over Reddit. And as you can imagine, most of the people reading and commenting were siding with Jason on this. I mean, let's be realistic. Who would you side with? You know, this seemingly innocent man who's obviously hardworking and just wants to take care of his family versus the habitual cheater. Brandi Worley was painted as the villain in this story, but absolutely no one could have foreseen the lengths that Brandi would go to out of spite. So with these series of posts going viral and Jason filing for divorce, obviously tensions were very high in the Worley household. Now, one important thing to note is that in the original Reddit posts, not only does Jason tell everybody that he plans to file for divorce, but that he's actually going to seek full custody of the two's children as well. And as I said, the two had 2 children together, 7-year-old Tyler and 3-year-old Charlie. Tyler Worley was born on September 17th, 2009. He was a first grade student at Sugar Creek Elementary who loved to play various sports including soccer, baseball, football, and basketball. Young Tyler also had dreams of one day working on computers just like his father. Charlie Worley was born on September 26, 2013. Charlie was enrolled in preschool and loved attending story time at the library. She also took dance classes and loved to play sports just like her older brother. On November 16th, 2016, Brandi Worley actually discovered that Jason had filed for divorce. Later on that evening, Brandi and Jason would attend their daughter Charlie's dance recital together. The couple later returned home and everything seemed fairly normal. The family even sat down at the table and had dinner together. So I guess while they're sitting down eating dinner, it suddenly dawns on Brandi that she needs to make a trip to the store. Now she claims that she needs to go buy pipe cleaners for a school project that Tyler has been working on. So Jason Worley stays behind and decides that he's going to spend some time playing with the kids before he puts them down for bed while Brandi goes to the store. Brandi heads to the Walmart located in Crawfordsville, Indiana. But instead of purchasing pipe cleaners for her child's school project, she would actually end up purchasing a K-bar style combat knife, which she would later use to end the lives of both of her children. So at this point, I'm not entirely sure what types of thoughts are spinning in Brandi Worley's mind, but at some point she comes to the conclusion that she absolutely cannot allow Jason to take away their 2 children. And in her mind, the only way that she could prevent this from happening was to end Tyler and Charlie's life and then take her own. So as I said, Brandi's at the store. Jason is spending some time with his kids, playing and whatnot, before he puts them down for bed. So Jason puts his children to sleep in their bedrooms, and then he heads downstairs to the basement. So I guess ever since the two had been having issues, Jason had been sleeping in the basement every night. Can't say I blame the guy. If I was trapped in a house with somebody who cheated on me, I definitely would not want to be sleeping in the same bed or the same room with them. But anyways, Jason Worley goes downstairs into the basement and he falls asleep. So at some point in the evening, Brandi returns home. Brandi Worley proceeds up the stairs of her home and into her son Tyler's bedroom. She wakes Tyler up and then asks him if he would like to go have a slumber party in his sister's bedroom. Brandi Worley wasted absolutely no time. As soon as she was able to lure Tyler into Charlie's bedroom, she began stabbing him numerous times with the combat knife. Now, during the attack, Brandi would later go on to say that Charlie actually woke up right in the middle of it. Brandi looks at Charlie and tells her, "Mommy's not doing anything, just go back to sleep." And once poor Charlie falls asleep again, Brandi proceeds to murder her with the combat knife as well. Brandi then turns the knife on herself in an attempt to take her own life. And although she did injure herself by stabbing herself in the neck with the same knife, she found that she could not go through with it. In the early hours of November 17th, Brandi Worley actually calls her mother on the telephone and tells her everything that she's just done. Brandi then proceeds to make a disturbing phone call to 911. The 911 dispatcher answers, asks her, some basic questions like her address and things like that. And then he asks her, what's going on? What's the emergency? And in this strikingly calm voice, she proceeds to tell the 911 dispatcher, "I just stabbed myself and murdered my 2 children." The dispatcher keeps her on the line, and he actually goes on to ask her, why? Why had she done this to her children? And she just coldly exclaims that her husband filed for divorce and that he was going to take the children away from her. And you can actually listen to this 911 call in its entirety. It is available on YouTube. There are several links. I do recommend anyone interested in this case give it a listen, simply because the lack of remorse or sympathy or empathy or just anything human in her voice is just absolutely chilling. Now, by this time, Brandi's mother had actually arrived at the home and rushed inside to find the children. Suddenly, screams of horror and anguish fill the Worley home as Brandi's mother goes into Charlie's room and finds the bodies of both of her grandchildren. The screams then awake Jason Worley, who immediately jumps up and begins running up the stairs from the basement, and as he reaches the top of the stairs, he actually encounters Brandi. She looked at him blankly and simply said, "Now you can't take the kids away from me." When police and first responders arrive, they find Brandi calmly sitting on her couch in her living room, as if nothing had happened. Tyler and Charlie are found upstairs in Charlie's bedroom. Their bodies had been covered up with blankets, with the K-bar style combat knife laying on the floor nearby. The children had suffered multiple deep puncture wounds to the neck and were pronounced dead at the scene. The only statement police were able to get from Brandi during this time was the fact that she basically didn't want Jason to take her children away from her, and that her goal had been to kill them and to die with them. From there, Brandi Worley was taken to a local hospital for treatment for her injuries, because she did, like I said, end up stabbing herself in the neck. And then from there, she went to Montgomery County Jail. And as the news of the tragedy spread, friends, family, and neighbors came together to help raise money to pay for the burials of Tyler and Charlie. Brandi Worley would go on to be charged with 2 counts of felony murder in regards to the death of her 2 children, Tyler and Charlie. Following the funeral, Jason Worley would actually go on to set up a GoFundMe account in hopes to raise enough money to help him basically start his life over again. I mean, at this point, Jason Worley has lost everything, and I can imagine he was simply just trying to pick up the pieces of what was left of his life. Towards the end of November of that year, Brandi Worley would actually go on to plead not guilty. Yes, not guilty to the murder of her 2 children. And it said that it was very clear from the start of this case that her defense team's plan was to put forth an insanity defense the entire time. Brandi was then ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation, and a competency hearing was set for the following year. Before that could happen, Brandi Worley would eventually go on to change her plea to guilty. And during her trial, Brandi Worley was actually given an opportunity to speak, but she said absolutely nothing. She failed to apologize and didn't even try to offer up any explanations as to why she did what she did. The judge would ultimately end up sentencing Brandi Worley to serve 120 years in prison. And while the judge was handing down his sentence, he did speak to everybody and say that he really felt as though everybody involved deserved an explanation from Brandi. He also went on to say that it was extremely unnatural, for a parent to even think about, let alone actually murder their child or children. And to kind of take a direct quote from him, sometimes there just is no explanation, he said. Darkness is in this world and it penetrates our minds and our own hearts. And I mean, ain't that the truth? We live in pretty sick and twisted times, and Brandi Worley is the perfect example of the types of people that are living out there in the world today, and you would just never know or never even guess that this person would be capable of such an atrocity. And to this very day, Brandi Worley has shown absolutely no remorse for the crimes that she committed against her 2 children. During her time in prison, she's since been diagnosed with depression, and it's said that she spends most of her days in a, quote, emotionless state. And as far as Jason Worley goes, he has stated that all he cares about is to never ever have to see Brandi ever again. She's out of sight, out of mind, basically. And ever since her trial commenced, he's basically maintained a low profile, and I honestly can't say that I blame him. And for that reason alone, I didn't really dig too much into what he's up to now, just because I feel like he's been through enough. He doesn't really need more people prying into his life. I sincerely hope that Jason Worley has, been able to move on with his life and that he's gotten the closure that he definitely deserves. And who knows, maybe one day Brandi Worley will come to her senses and, give everybody an explanation as to why she chose to end the lives of her 2 children. Thank you all for hanging out with me today. Sorry if I look a little sweaty. Our AC in our apartment is actually busted, and it's like really the first super warm day that we've had this spring, and your girl is over here dying. I do not do well in warm climates, let me tell you. I do realize that today's story was just a little on the heavy side. I try to kind of spread those stories out a little bit, especially when children are involved. I feel like that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to do my cryptid series so badly is just on those weeks where I really just don't have it in me to talk about the dark and morbid. I can kind of fall back on something else that is interesting to me. So do make sure that you go and check out my latest videos. Obviously, part one of this story is up on my channel, as well as my first video in my cryptid series, and it is about the Elkhart cable line monster. Definitely be sure to check both of those videos out. I'm still working on that Larry Eiler story for you all, and I definitely have more cryptid stories coming in the next few weeks. I also have a couple of more recent stories that I was reading about that really grabbed my attention, and I would like to kind of shine a spotlight on both of those as well. So, yeah, basically, lots and lots of new content coming your guys' way. Again, I thank you all for being so patient with me. I'm, like I always say, a very sporadic content creator, and the fact that some of you are still out there watching just means a lot to me, so thank you for that. Don't forget, we are on Instagram and Facebook as well as YouTube, so go give us a follow, give us a like, and that way you can keep up with all things Infamous Indie. And as always, stay spooky, keep it creepy, and watch your back out there because it's a crazy fucking world.